team. Welcome to the Find Your Influence podcast. And we've got an amazing, amazing human with us today, the amazing Lisa Blair, who is, actually, I'm not even going to tell you about Lisa, so I'll let Lisa tell you about Lisa. Good morning and thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for inviting me along on the show.
Oh, it's great to have you on. I just love people like yourself who are fearless. That's probably the word that I would say.
People call me brave and I say I'm either stupid or brave. I'm still to make a decision.
I tell you who else I've met is Michelle Lee. Do you know Michelle?
Yeah, I know Michelle really well. She's great.
Oh, isn't she amazing? And team, just so that you know, we'll talk about Michelle later very quickly because she might come up in conversation. But Lisa, why don't you tell us about your achievements, what you've done, your sailing, your amazing expeditions?
Awesome. How much time we got? Because there's quite a few.
The biggest ones.
So I guess I'm more well-known or most well-known for sailing solo around Antarctica. So I set the world record in 2022, becoming the fastest person in the world to sail solo non-stop and unassisted around Antarctica, the third person in human and the first woman in the world to do it. So that took me 8 years to do that record, and I sail and campaign on my boat called Climate Action Now. So for me, all my sailing is around how can I inspire our communities to take positive action for climate action. So I think that fits really well with our topics today on influencing and and how you can use the power of adventure and storytell to empower people to do what you want.
Whoa, Lisa, 8 years.
8 years to set that record, yeah. And I actually only started sailing when I was 25. So I think I've been sailing 13 or 14 years now. So yeah, and I have 8 world records now. Just, because I can.
Just because you're stupid or brave or stupid. What are some of the other world records?
I broke my own record when I went around Antarctica for the second time. So I attempted it in 2017 and dismasted, set the women's record, and then I broke that record in the 2022 trip. I also have the record as the fastest monohull to sail solo nonstop and unassisted around Australia, and the first woman to do it nonstop in 58 days. I just recently this year set 3 more records sailing to New Zealand and around New Zealand, 2 separate categories, and I'm now working on the Arctic Circle.
Right. Well, I read books.
I do too. I read a lot of books at sea.
Sea, of course. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I am really bad because I read a lot of trash when I'm at sea. It's like my version of TV.
Good. So talking about that, just before we get into some influence questions, what's the inspiration? Where does this all come from? What's the heart or the gut? What's the driver?
Yeah, I think it's as me wanting to just have adventures and like do it while I could. So I didn't start sailing till I was in my last year at university, and I was going to become a high school art teacher, and then discovered sailing and just felt so at home at the sea and just fell in love with it. And so I wanted more, and I wanted to chase down those adventures, and that led to me campaigning for the first project around Antarctica. And along that journey, I've sort of seen the environmental impacts at sea. So much trash in the ocean, dead zones, instability in the weather patterns. And so my campaign started to become a lot more around how can I inspire change through the storytell. And then that's now, the key driver for me is how can I craft a project around the idea of influencing a community of people to take a positive climate action within their circle, within their network, and within what they can control in their world.
Well, and so the drive started with adventure. Then there became this bigger mission, really.
Absolutely.
That was to make a difference on this planet. To do that, you've got to tell some stories and you've got to influence other humans. What's that going for you? And just because we're talking about find your influence, what's that look like? What do you lean into when you want to influence others?
I'm massive on positivity and leading by doing. So I'm not so much a teller in the sense that I'll just tell people what they should be doing. Instead, I'll try and lead from the front of the pack, so to speak, and be a really good example to people coming forward, and then share my own personal journey across my own learning experiences. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Sustainability is a journey, and I think that people should realize that. And so I try and share all of that with my audience as I go along on these projects and these records, and remind them that as a single person, we all have the power to create change. It just starts with one action, and take away that stigma that we have to change absolutely everything in our life in order to be considered sustainable. Instead, we just have to start with one thing, and then we can maybe tackle a second thing when we get to it. So I guess for me, I really utilize the power of global media coverage, and I lean into that quite a lot. And it's the sort of chicken and the egg factor, in the sense that I'm not necessarily someone who likes to be in front of a lot of cameras, and it's not a goal of mine in life to be uber famous or something, but the potential of impact that I can generate if I can elevate my personal profile and I can reach more people, then I can have a greater influence in sustainability.
Elevate my profile to influence others. Wow. I love that. So that's how you influence others. And really, it's the by doing is what I got. You realize the power of one action. Love that. Just start somewhere. There was a great book written called The One Thing. What's that one thing? Let's take a step back. That's where you are now. Who influenced you? Did you have like a sailing influencer, like an Antarctica explorer that you just went, I'm going to be like that?
I think a lot of the heroic female sailors that have come before me, like your Kay Cotty, your Jessica Watson, Dee Kafari, Ella MacArthur, like there's so many incredible sailors out there that have paved the way for me to have an opportunity to do this. But also, any of the other solo sailors I fell so in love with the story of adventure by reading their books and connecting with their own journeys. And that's what showed me that I could maybe live this life one day if I wanted to. And it was actually a quote. The quote is, "Just do, because the world is changed by doers." And it was the punchline of a TV ad about 12 years ago. And I was on the fence of trying to do my first project, and Jessica Watson was finishing her world record. And then this quote came up, and I was dreaming about doing, but not taking any actionable steps towards making that dream a reality. And so I think, yeah, hugely influenced by just the success of their journeys and the reality that they're just normal humans. They're doing remarkable things, but they're just normal humans that are challenging themselves. And then I think from the sustainability side, it was my family, like my mum and dad. We grew up in the bush. We were exposed to wildlife and that connection to the food chain, and respect of the planet. And I've carried that through my entire life. And then I've gone and seen firsthand, plastic oceans and all of that. And I've just wanted to utilize this platform that I've generated through records to really inspire and create change.
Wow. And have you seen that come back? Like, have you got young female sailors reaching out and saying that you're their Jessica Watson, or you're their motivation, you're their inspiration, you're their influence?
It's pretty surreal when you have that. I have this 9-year-old boy, Fraser, who will absolutely love to hear I've mentioned his name in this podcast. But he is such a cool fan. He comes down and volunteers on the boat. He's read my book, and he's messaging me on Instagram all the time with little updates and when can we go sailing? And so I have people like that come up, and young girls, young boys who have read the book. I meet them at maybe a talk or an event or a screening of the movie Ice Maiden, which is just releasing at the moment. And they come up and say, "Oh no, I've done 3 school projects on you, or I've done this or that." And it's like the sweetest thing to know that the work I'm doing, because this journey can be quite tough at times. Obviously, I'm putting myself in really extreme environments, but also I'm having to like overcome my own self-doubt endlessly every single day that I'm battling against that. And it reminds you that it's worth it, you know, that you can impact other people in a really positive, fulfilling way and be that inspiration that I needed when I was a kid, you know, for some other person's child and some other, you know, person growing up and becoming a cool human in our world. And I just think that's the best.
Oh, is there any other legacy? Is there any other difference you could leave on the planet than
Yeah.
inspiring someone to find their own adventure? Beautifully answered. So in saying all that, can I just jump out of influence for a moment? Well, it's still influence. How do you influence yourself? How do you overcome this self-doubt? There will be people out there watching this video today going, you know what? I'm doubting myself. I'm scared. I've got fear, and it's only to do a public speech or it's only to take on a leadership role. You've just you say it around the world. How do you influence yourself? What's the self-talk? What's the dialogue?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have a dialogue apart from like a few swear words that I scream at myself, which I probably shouldn't say in this podcast.
Yeah, like David Goggins.
And a little bit of a slap on the face was like, get your crap together.
Right, good. So you're hard on yourself by the sounds of that.
But at the same time, I think it's really important to acknowledge how far you've come. And I think people forget to look backwards. And so one of the big things that I found as a really useful tool is when I'm getting super overwhelmed by what I'm trying to challenge next. Like I'm trying to do a world first record next. It's quite intense, trying to raise a huge amount of sponsorship for it. And I really struggle with the sponsorship section of it because I hate asking people for money and things like that. And so I need to know it's got value. And there's this whole complexity that goes with that. But I then remind myself that, okay, if I look back 10 years at what I've achieved in that 10 years of time of just continually taking a step in the right direction, it takes the kind of, I guess, enormity out of it and the scariness out of it, because it shows me that I will get there and I'm already on that path. I'm already trending that direction. I just have to keep focusing on the next step that's in front of me. And I think if there's, you know, like you say, other people looking to do a speech on stage or looking to take a new leadership role and they're a bit daunted by it, they wouldn't be getting offered those opportunities unless they're in a position to take them, because they've got the skill sets and the requirements to do it. And if they looked back over their career, they would realize that. If they looked back over what they've already come through and what they've already achieved, they would be able to see that and kind of reframe that for themselves. And as far as things like keynote speaking, I do a lot of that these days, and I still get really scared sometimes on stage. And I actually get more intimidated by a small room of people than I do in front of 600 or 700 people, because everyone will feed off each other in a large room, but in a really small, intimate setting, you're looking for that reaction. And if you don't get it, it can be a bit daunting and throw you a little bit. And the biggest thing I do is I don't have a speech. I am dyslexic. My brain won't work if I've got a word for word prepared speech. If I skip a single word in that, my whole brain shuts down and it'll try my hardest to remember that word, or I'll stumble, or I'll, you know, whereas I have bullet points. I have exactly what I want to say in bullet points, but the way I frame those sentences up are done on the fly in that moment as I'm having that kind of, I treat it like, I guess, more like a conversation with the audience and a story tell.
Whoa. Now there's a tip for public speakers.
Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise, I just find if I mess up one word on a pre-prepared speech, it all goes out of my head. Yeah. You get hooked on that one process that you've done wrong, you know?
And there's a level of self-awareness, I guess, with, you know, the way you articulate that and the way you explain your process. You're really clear on how that works for you, and you're really clear on what you need to do to get over not only the fear potentially of getting up there, but any hurdles you might face.
Yeah. And I guess like the other thing, if you're just keeping on the topic of public speaking, your body doesn't know whether it's fear or excitement. The same energy is applied, like the same feeling in your body is applied. So I tell myself, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And I'll just repeat it. Like I'll go do my final nervous pee in the bathroom or something. I'll just be like, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. And
I love
it
it.
helps a lot. And then I just go out there pumped full of energy and I'm excited. Um, so yeah, I definitely think that those are sort of key things, but also I really, and I didn't realize I did this so much until the director of the film that we made, Ice Maiden, which is my first Antarctica circumnavigation, until I did a Q&A on stage with him. And he was like, one of the best things about Lisa is that she doesn't dwell on the things that she can't control. And I didn't really like, I knew I do it as a little bit, but I didn't realize I did it so much. And now it's being sort of brought to my awareness. I definitely focus. Like I have this mentality that if I can't control it, if I can't change it in the next 30 minutes to an hour or within that day, then I'm not going to spend any energy stressing about it, because stressing is not going to change the outcome because I can't change anything in that situation. So instead, I will focus on the things that are within my control, that I can change, that I can work on becoming better at. And that frees my mental health up and allows me to just get on with it.
You have a forward focus, not a sort of a back stressor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Um, and so do you, I'm guessing you take that sort of an attitude out into your sailing as well. And you, if there was a storm, you've broken a mast or you've lost a thing or something's happened, you go, you know what? You must have the ability to park things, do you? Because there would be, every day at sea would be 100 hurdles, wouldn't it? And you'd have to just go, you know what, I've got to park that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also put it massively in perspective. So for me to do something like the first attempt in Antarctica around, like sailing solo around Antarctica, I was preparing for 3 months at sea, for that world record. The very first attempt took me 3.5 years of full-time work to get that project off the ground, to raise the money, to refit the boat. We were still working till 2 in the morning the night before I left for the record. So when you look at the greater timeline, 3.5 years for 3 months at sea, the 3 months should be the easy bit in the greater scheme of it. And so while I have hard days, I remind myself that I've worked for 3 years to be having the privilege to be here, to be going through something difficult, knowing that it's temporary
The
and that I chose
privilege,
to be here.
hold on, hold on. You just repeat that for your audience. I hope you heard, I hope you can remember it. The privilege to go through something difficult.
Yeah, so I worked for 3 years, or 3.5 years, to have the privilege to be going through this, to have this opportunity, and I chose to be here. I purposely worked to be here, having that opportunity. I think it's quite different if you put that in perspective against something like COVID and the isolation that people felt and experienced with COVID. That's a very different scenario because that's outside of their control. That's something that's been pushed onto them, and it's not something that they chose to do. And so therefore people reacted quite differently to it because they couldn't put that into any kind of narrative that made sense.
Wow, whereas you can. That is, it's insanely insightful. Thank you. No, seriously. I have the privilege to be going through this, which is probably, was it the hardest 3 months of your life or was it like, well, can you just talk your viewers through and they can watch the movie Ice Maiden and I can't wait to watch it. When's it out? When do we get to see it? Is it on
It's
Netflix?
releasing in cinemas at the moment. It'll be another 6 months or so till it's online. Yeah. So if you go to
Right.
icemaidenfilm.com, you get all the screening updates, and the trailer is also up there.
Thank you. So for all our listeners out there, get on Ice Maiden. Can't wait to watch this. This is going to be a great movie. Now, because I think I have not got dyslexia but ADD, I forget what I was going to ask you. Was it a good 3 months? Was it actually fun or was it not?
There's definitely fun bits. I operate on 20-minute micro sleeps for the entire record. So I might average 2 to 4 hours sleep a night if I'm lucky. the boat sailing through a storm the size of a hurricane or a cyclone every week. And so you're going through waves the height of a 3 or 4 story building on a kind of weekly basis. But then when you get bad storms, like the worst conditions I sailed through was 15-meter swells and winds that were around 80 knots of wind, which is you start losing the roof of your house at 60 knots. So just to put that kind of in perspective, snowstorms, blizzards, iceberg risk. I saw land once in the whole circumnavigation. But yeah, I mean, I have good times. I'll have a good day at sea where I got a little bit of extra sleep and I'll be like humming around the boat and, you know, pottering around. I do a happy food dance when I've got a really fun meal. And like, you know, sailing is actually this place that I feel so at home on a boat. Like it's like coming home to me. And it's like all the stresses and the things on land fall away, because at sea your life is pretty simple. It's eat, sleep, sail, rinse, repeat. And what's the weather doing? And that complexity that we have in day-to-day life on land, where we've got this constant urgency about everything we do, we're constantly contactable through our mobile phones, we're, you know, got this flood of information feed through either watching TV, playing on your phones, doom scrolling, whatever it is. Your mind is so busy all the time that we don't give it enough time to rest and decompress. And I find for me, sailing gives me that, even when I'm in the middle of a major storm in the Southern Ocean. And so, yeah, so it's a hardship, definitely, but it's also part of it's coming home as well.
Wow. And you'd have to have a massive team behind you, wouldn't you, too, Lisa? Like, is there like humans everywhere, like calling you, you know, making sure you're okay, like getting ready to send out something, food? I don't know, like.
So it's completely unassisted. So there's no boat or anything near me. So I'm completely on my own when I'm out there. I have communication with shore team. So I am obviously in contact with my family, and then I'm in contact with my shore manager, Jeff, and his wife, Sue, and a couple of other key people that have helped with the project, know the boat really well when I'm troubleshooting problems. But largely, like, I'm on my own, and I'm closer, like when I did dismast and nearly died on the first record, I wrote the book Facing Fear about it, but I was more than 3 days from help. And I knew that going into this project that rescue was never going to be an option. And, you know, I would have to self-rescue in all scenarios. So therefore my preparation and planning needed to reflect that.
I think I just had a scary moment. Rescue was not an option to me. I just feel like, you know, you just call up for a helicopter and come and get you.
I'm outside a helicopter range. When I dismasted, the Navy actually worked out, or the Air Force guy who was part of the volunteer marine rescue there, calculated the fastest way to pick me up. I was 1,000 nautical miles from land, directly south of South Africa. And he said he would have had to fly one of their rescue choppers to the furthest ship, which was 800 nautical miles from me at the time, landed on the ship, drive the ship for a day and a half to get the helicopter within range of a rescue, refuel the helicopter, fly the helicopter out, pick me up off the boat, fly the helicopter back to the ship, motor back up towards land, and then fly the helicopter to land. So it would have been 3 days to reach me and 3 days to get back. That's how remote a location it is.
Right. That puts things into perspective. I hope that was getting the grab of this conversation. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I did some research, of course, and I've got it up here, and, you know, waves the size of houses and all that. I saw some of that sort of literature, but I haven't got this in depth into your story. So have you ever feared for so you have feared for your life?
Yeah, definitely. Multiple times. When the boat dismasted. So that, for those who don't know what that means, basically the mast is the tall aluminium bit that the sails fly off. That for me snapped at deck level. I was in hurricane force conditions and 6 to 8 meter breaking waves, and so the boat is then tangled with the rigging wire, everything's still attached, but it's broken. And so then these waves are breaking, driving it up onto the deck, and then smashing into the boat and throwing the boat out from under the force of the wave. And so you end up with this sort of really aggressive kind of push shove action. And my mast started to cut the boat in half in those conditions. And if I had to abandon to a life raft, there was no survival, given how remote a location. The chances of them finding me would be slim, let alone surviving hypothermia, not having the vessel rolled, and, you know, the life raft deteriorating in those conditions. But so the only way to keep the boat floating was to cut the mast free and separate it from the boat, which put me in an increased position of risk around the vessel. So climbing on your hands and knees past jarring bits of metal, waves trying to drag you off the boat every 30 seconds, you're underwater. You know, and at one point I had to climb outside the safety rails onto the bowsprit at the front of the boat, and I had maybe a 50-50 shot of coming back from that. So yeah, those are hard memories, and I did get PTSD from that experience, and I suffered some pretty extreme hypothermia, and but ultimately I was able to save the boat, which in turn saved my life.
Right.
That's just one moment.
Yeah, cool. We'll do another 20 podcasts.
Yeah.
Holy. And from a psych perspective, the PTSD, is that all cool? Is that tracking for you? It's not something that stops you getting back on a boat?
It didn't stop me getting back on a boat. It took me 5 years to go back to the Southern Ocean and challenge that record again. 5 years to process, and it changed the way I felt at sea. Like, it took a lot of that comfort and security blanket away from me. But it was about rebuilding my trust in the boat and my trust in my own abilities that I needed to go through to be sure that next time, because there's always a next time in the middle of the ocean, that I've got all the tools capable of meeting and exceeding that challenge. And I knew that I could, because I survived this challenge because I had the right tools with me and the right equipment on board the boat to allow me to survive it. That I also found, and this is where I talk a lot about that reflection, going back to what you've achieved before, because it wasn't until I looked backwards across the whole scope of that record years later, while I was actually writing the manuscript for the book Facing Fear, that I started to understand that that was actually a gift, that that was a brilliant learning opportunity. And if I could view it from the right lens or the right perspective, then I could actually become a much stronger sailor because of that experience. It showed me that the preparation and planning that I had in place before leaving port on the first record, and the level of preparation I did, which was extreme in a lot of people's eyes, it was the right tactic, because it allowed me to be able to survive that emergency when I was faced with it. And it showed me that as long as I apply that same preparation and planning to all other aspects of risk across the vessel and the records, then there's no reason on paper and in theory that I wouldn't be able to survive any other emergency that I might face out there. Like if the keel fell off, or the rudder fell off, or, you know, I broke my leg, or any number of other things that can go wrong in the middle of the ocean. So it gave me a lot more confidence in my ability to actually do the second record, because I could actually manage those emergencies correctly.
Holy. And I think everything you just said there. So back earlier in the podcast, you used the word reframe. I think you've probably done that in this situation when you say a different lens, a more positive lens. You know, what can I learn? What can I do differently? What will happen in the future based on the experience that I've had? So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the only time, like, I viewed that record for many, many years as a failure. And it wasn't until I started looking at it from that perspective that I started to see the true value of that experience. And so I think, like, for others, if they're having a hard time or they feel like they're not succeeding, you know, shift the way you're looking at it and use it as a lesson. Because even if it's maybe a business that you've started that's not going so great and you feel like it's failing, or whatever that is, you've learned something through that journey. And if you focus on the learning and what you've been able to take from it, then you become better at being able to do it next time, or to do something slightly different next time. And so you become stronger, you become wiser, you've learned what not to do, you know, you've learned what works for you, and you can focus on those things.
and you've just summed up the word resilience. That's
Yeah.
that's great. I'm going to play this at all my leadership training programs now. And just so you know, this is what resilience is from Lisa Blair. Focus on use it as a learning. Shift your thinking, and then be better for next time. Lisa Blair, you're amazing. In closing, can I just ask? So, from an influence perspective, I certainly hope that you have, if you're a listener to this, you've been influenced by the power of the way that Lisa thinks, Lisa's behaviour, Lisa's actions, Lisa's leading from the front, and just we think about fear as being something that we worry about, but when you fear for your life, that's a different story altogether. Lisa, very quickly, just to all our listeners out there, to people that in your social media circle, what's the quote? What's the line? What's the bit of influence that if you wanted to change the planet right now for better, what's the catch cry? And you might have said it a few times already, but is there how would you influence the planet now?
Yeah, I definitely think I still just live by that idea that just do, because the world is changed by doers. You've got to actually be proactive for the future that you want to create. But I also very hugely believe that attitude is everything. And we can't change what people do to us. We can't change how they hurt us or impact us. We can only change what we do in response to that. Whether we think positively, whether we remove ourselves, whether we lean into it because it's a good experience, that's what's within our control. And so making sure you've got the right attitude in life and understanding that the future is generated by you.
The future is generated by you. Lisa Blair, next level. I can't thank you enough. And a massive shout out to Lauren Clement, who
yes, absolutely.
Beautiful human.
Yeah, and the Audacious Agency, they've been incredible support.
Oh, good. And as they have for our business as well. So massive shout out to the Audacious Agency. If you're looking to elevate your business profile, please give Lauren Clement a call, and I might even put Lauren Clement's details below.
Yeah.
Lisa Blair, you are that's just blown my mind, I must say. I've read a story now to actually hear you talk about it like that is just spin out. So thank you so much. Can't wait to get this out there. I'll let you know when it's out there. And I can't. Well, I'm going to watch Ice Maiden, and I'm going to read Facing Your Fears. Yeah.
Facing Fear.
Facing Fear.
Yeah.
Love you.